Okay, for record purposes, my name is Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho. I'm the chairman of Genesis Worldwide Shipping as well as the chairman of Integrated Oil and Gas.
All right, sir. Please tell me about Genesis Worldwide Shipping Company and Integrated Oil and Gas.
Yeah, Genesis Worldwide Shipping was the very first corporate vehicle that we established. That was in the early 1990s. After I left service in government, I used to work for the Nigerian National Shipping Lines. And in the early 1990s, I decided to take early retirement from government service and establish my own shipping line because I wanted a platform where I would be free to practice the things that I preached, to be able to give service to customers and to be able to profitably run that service. So that is how Genesis Worldwide Shipping came to being. Originally, Genesis Worldwide Shipping was a ship operating company offering service to people who traded oil coastwise. And we did that for a number of years, and suddenly it became apparent to us that we could actually integrate into the business itself. And so that's how Integrated Oil and Gas became established. And so from having one company, Genesis Worldwide Shipping, we became Genesis Worldwide Shipping on the one hand, and Integrated Oil and Gas as the oil trading arm of that arrangement.
Wow. Okay, so, sir, as the Chief Executive Officer of Genesis Worldwide Shipping Company, please kindly speak on the challenges that ship owners face and how those challenges can be curbed.
Well, I mean, you cannot have a uniform set of challenges that every ship owner faces. The challenges that you face is really a function of the background in which you are operating. So if I'm talking from the point of view of a Nigerian operator, for instance, we have to take cognizance of the fact that shipping is a highly capital-intensive enterprise. You need a lot of money to be able to buy a ship. You need a lot of money to be able to train people to regulate the output from operating that ship. So these were the challenges that people, Nigerian ship owners, encountered. For instance, when we incorporated Genesis Worldwide Shipping, we started off as an office entity, communicating with people who own ships, offering diverse services, vitling, bunkering, anything that they wanted to do, which we could do for pay. And eventually we got to the point where we started interacting with NIMASA today, but used to be the National Maritime Authority, NMA at that time. And at some point in time, we benefited from a program which they established to assist the Nigerian companies in finding finance to buy ships. And so we borrowed a very modest amount in those days, modest in relation to the amounts that you're required to buy a ship, $2 million. And we went out and bought a vessel called the Type SD-14 ship, which are unique vessels that were built in North East England, and they were very slow, but they were very steady in what they did. So you could say that we learned the art of operating ships through operating that original vessel that we bought, because we operated the ship all the way to Saudi Arabia, from Saudi Arabia, using 100% Nigerian crews, and depending on our own experience garnered from working in the Nigerian National Shipping Lines, operated from Saudi Arabia to India, operated from India to Brazil, operated from Brazil to Spain, and we operated all over the place. But what really happened was that we proved what we had continued to say, that if you gave Nigerians a chance, if they could actually overcome the institutional problems you have with respect to the availability of finance, that they were good enough to operate ships to any ports in the world. And that's what we did with that vessel. We subsequently went on to own and operate about 7 ships, a very diverse fleet, ships of general cargo vessels, tanker vessels, and quite a lot of other small craft as well.
Well, so you are an experienced maritime executive and industry veteran. What can you say about the maritime space?
About the what?
Maritime space.
Yeah, well, the maritime space is really full of a lot of opportunities. You know, Nigeria happens to be a major international trading country. International trading from the point of view that we produce oil and we sell it internationally, and it invariably requires to be loaded on board ships if we need to export it in quantities sufficient for it to be of interest to refiners. And then once we are paid for exporting that oil, now we import a lot of consumption goods, so we need ships to a very great extent. We need ships, we need support vessels, we need support services, we need to develop the capacity to build our own ships. We need so many things arising from the fact that we are an international trading nation and that we have that very long and continuous coastline. So we have so much that we can derive if we properly organize to exploit the opportunities that exist in that industrial domain.
Okay, so what are the improvements you've seen in the maritime?
The improvements, I would say that it would have been very nice if at this stage, first let me just take the oil sector trade for instance. So then we discovered oil in commercial quantities in the late 1950s. So we're here, we are 2025, very long time ago, and we're still loading our oil onto vessels that are owned and operated by non-Nigerian entities. We've had enough time to be able to develop that capacity to say we're selling our oil on a C&F basis so that we can maximize the benefits that accrues from that trade. We didn't do it. So if we didn't own the vessels, or if we don't own the vessels, most of the things that the vessels need to operate, you know, bunkers, victuals, repairs, all of those things, we are not able to develop them. So that really has been a sad part of what we should have realized in the maritime that we didn't realize. But we can say that it's not too late. We can actually go back and look at what remains to be done and make plans, articulate plans for achieving those things that we really think that we should have done historically.
All right, sir. So women are underrepresented in the maritime industry in Africa, facing discrimination, harassment, and other barriers to participation. What do you think is responsible for this?
I get perplexed every time people say that because I was at sea for a very long time, and I don't think that I particularly discriminated against women. I didn't discriminate against them in any way. If they wanted to work on board ships, then they had to go to school to qualify, to have the certificates to work on board ships. The only worry that I would have with respect to having women on board is that the conditions on board ships are so tough. You know, it's not really like working in an office. It's really wires all over the place, ropes under tension, pipes that could erupt at any time. And every time you think about a woman walking around that, and if this happens, my God, what would you do? Would you be saving the ship or trying to save the woman? So I really don't subscribe to that belief that women are discriminated against. I don't know of any national laws that says that women must not go on board the ships, women will not be seamen, women will not be sea captains. I have trained women who have become captains in my company. I actually set out at one time to make sure that I created special places for women on my ships. And every time I went to the UK, I would go to the Merchant Navy shop and buy uniforms for the women out of my own pocket. So really, if you use me as an example, you would not subscribe to that belief that women are discriminated against. We love our women. We really like for them to be working with us. It normalizes the shipboard environment.
So, sir, from what you just said, it appears you've never witnessed where men bully women.
What would they be bullying them for? What are they trying to prove?
or those ones that feel women should be restricted to the kitchen alone?
No, I don't believe that that is the case. I think that some women really have that belief that anytime that they speak up in relation to equity issues in the industry, they have to say that women are being suppressed and women are being bullied. Where have you seen a woman being bullied? On board the ship or on the quayside? I don't think that that is the case. But having said that, it would be a very good idea for us to have an open field, create equal opportunities for women to participate, but don't ask us to lower the standards just to be able to accommodate the women, because then that would not be a very fair thing to do.
Listen, do you believe in the saying that what a man can do, a woman can do better?
Well, I don't know about the better bits. It might well be that what a man can do, a woman might be able to do it too. So I'm not going to say that they're going to do it better. They could do it better in some cases, but it's not a matter for us to continue to litigate.
All right, thank you very much. So what are the key challenges facing the Nigerian maritime industry, and how can they be addressed to unlock the sector's full potential and contribute meaningfully to the country's economy?
The economy is absolutely growing, but I don't think that our people understand fully what role the maritime plays. And so they are interested in the secondary returns. So if the ship brings in goods, we want to eat the goods, but we don't want to participate in producing the service that carries those goods inwards. If a foreigner can bring a ship to lift our crude and take it, we don't care about how the crude gets there. We know that the crude has gone to a refinery in Europe, it has been refined, it's been loaded on board a ship not belonging to Nigerians, and then the ship, the crude, the refined oil comes here and we buy it. That is not the way it is. That is not the way countries that are making progress economically, people like China, for instance. The Chinese are all over the place. They're absolutely looking for opportunities. And if they see gaps in production that is not being filled, they offer to fill that gap. And in so doing, they are creating dynamism within their economy and creating jobs and creating value all the time. So that is what I think really ought to be done. I don't think that we are paying adequate attention to a rehearsal of the opportunities that exist, because if we know, then we'd create a match between Nigerians who want to exploit that opportunities and the opportunities, and the government can say, we will create the enabling environment for this to happen. Enabling environment in what sense? I give you an example. In NIMASA has accrued a lot of money over the years under the CVFF program. And the CVFF program is a program that is designed so that people make a contribution into a fund from which we can then lend to aspiring Nigerian ship owners. Well, we've been talking about it for a long time, and you wonder if we're ever going to do anything about it. Talking about it, one administration comes and that administration goes. The next one, that's the first question they ask him, we're going to deal with it. In another 3 or 4 years, that administration goes. We should be a little bit more serious and not as cavalier as we are proving ourselves to be. There is a lot to be derived from investments in the maritime sector, investments in ports, investments in ships, investments in all the support services that sustain operations on board ships and on shore.
So, sir, as a global shipping company, Genesis Worldwide Shipping Company Limited operates in a rapidly changing maritime landscape. So how do you see the impact of digitalization, sustainability, and geopolitical tensions shaping the future of the maritime industry? And what strategies is your company adopting to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, well, I will simply answer that not by telling you what we are doing, because currently, if you came into our office, you see that we are presented as an integrated oil company rather than a shipping company. But in terms of all those changes that you have talked about, digitalization, what are we looking for? We're looking for greater efficiency We are looking for a reduction in the cost of reporting everything that happens. So first and foremost, it has to do with knowledge. Curriculum has to change. So if our people went to school where in the past all they learned was manual processes, we now have to realize that digitalization is the key. And we now have to change our curriculum in our schools so that we will be able to understand what is going on and be a party to it. The extent of the automation and digitalization that we have witnessed has gone to an extent where people are even considering what they call the autonomous vessel. An autonomous vessel is a vessel that absolutely has nobody manning it, not on board the ship. They are ashore and they are looking at sensors and all of those things, and they are looking at charts, and then they send the ship out, and the ship starts sailing, and the ship will encounter other vessels at sea, will see them at a distance, will maneuver and get away from colliding with them, and will go to ports. So if we didn't pay attention to the need to provide complementary reception facilities for this type of vessels, we will be cut out of international trade, because the vessels will come and say, the ports in Lagos or in Port Harcourt are so old-fashioned, they cannot recognize signals that are being sent to them. So those ships will bypass us. And what we'll then be doing is we'll be relegated to the background, where we'll be using very old and ancient and inefficient technologies. So it is very important for us to realize the extent to which digitalization and automation has absolutely come into the industry, so that we can take out appropriate investments in blockchain technology, in Internet of Things, in AI, automatic artificial intelligence. We need to be able to do all of those things. There are ports that you can point to in North Africa that are very automated, where you can see the containerization. You load the containers on straddles that really have sensors, and they know exactly where they are going, and they go to those places and they drop, and a ship comes in, they load. You don't have human beings standing there shaking their hands, waving back and forth. No, all those things are absolutely things that have become obsolete, and so we should actually make an effort to upgrade our curriculum in our training institutions. So Africa, and off the coast of South Africa, they met very heavy waves, and the heavy waves broke the ship, the bow of the ship, and water poured inside the ship. But in all of that, a fish came and blocked where that breach was, and stopped the water from pouring in and sinking the ship. And it sounds so much like a fairy story, but actually it's true, because one person who sailed on board the ship is still here. Is still here. Another one is in Lagos, but is not in this company. So they went down at the time and said, "Oh, this water that is coming in, let's go down. You have to go down the hole to see." And they went down and they could see something that looked like an organic something, and they are touching it soft. So what can this be? So it's a fish. And it had plugged itself where the breach was in, and the water stopped coming in. So that is a miracle.
Indeed.
Yes. It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle.
Wow. Okay, so finally, what do you think the government should do to advance the maritime sector?
Well, the truth of the matter is the government should actually listen to people who have been there before. They should listen to professionals. We should stop pandering to political considerations when we are appointing people to office in technical industries. So if you are not of my political party, then I'm not going to appoint you there. It doesn't matter. If you're not of my political party, I can sit you down to say, we recognize who you are. You bring skills that we need. Are you willing to work for us and eschew politics? And I don't see anybody that you will speak to like that will say, no, I'm a different political party from you, I'm not going to help the country. So I think that it will be very helpful if we played down the requirement for political considerations in appointing technocrats and heads of technical agencies and departments.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.